Hey, welcome to Graphic Policy Television GPTV. I'm Brett. In my hands is one of the latest releases from First Second. This is Fault Lines in the Constitution graphic novel. It's part of First Second's World Citizen Comics, a really interesting line of graphic novels that discusses civics. It dives into how the United States works and some of our history. And it's been a really interesting line. It's a great way to get educated on various topics and dive into it a little bit more in a much more entertaining way than all the various books and texts I had to read doing it as a political science major way back in the day. So this one is called Fault Lines in the Constitution. It's by Cynthia Levinson and Sanford Levinson, art by Shwed. Let me check if there is a letter, color by Gerard, Alba, Rojas, and lettering by Boyle. I looked that up. So it's a really interesting graphic novel that goes and through the Constitution. I believe the writers Cynthia Levinson and Sanford Levinson have a book of a similar nature that's had a couple versions out. I vaguely remember grabbing it at the American Library Association, but I think it's the same book. So the graphic novel takes us through the Constitution and the faults of the Constitution and basically how, what the logic of the framers had and then how some of that doesn't work to today. In that sense, the graphic novel is absolutely fantastic. It doesn't really take a lot of stances at that point. It's just hey, here's what they came up with. This is why they came up with it. And today, here's how that doesn't quite work anymore, that there's some issues with that. And if you look at it that way, the graphic novel is absolutely fantastic. I think it is a solid read, very educational, really kind of walks you through the Constitution the process, the history, the logic behind it, and keeps on reminding you that a lot of this was compromises. That this was a group of individuals who didn't necessarily get along. They came from very different backgrounds and had different opinions and things that they were representing, and they had to work together to come to this compromise that is the Constitution. That is a theme throughout the graphic novel, and I think it's really important to remember that basically there was no decisions that were perfect. They all came out of compromise and a lot of work going to it. And what's interesting is the graphic novel, I think, does a really solid job of showing what some of those other solutions were, what some of the other proposals were. And you can see how, folks would take an extreme on one, an extreme on another, and then they kind of sort of wound up in the middle, and everyone was like, well, I don't win, they don't win, whatever. It does a really solid job of that history. It does a solid job of saying, this is kind of how it's been interpreted, and then today this is how things kind of gone off the rail a little bit due to that. Where I think the graphic novel has an issue is after that. It goes through and grades the Constitution, and then there's a discussion between the authors about having a new constitutional convention, which I think both of those things takes it away from a graphic novel that discusses and dissects an issue and makes it more of a personal opinion. It makes me suspect of everything that I've read up to that point. There is a graphic novel, one of the other ones is Unrigged, that came out that talked about the money and influence of politics, and that would put out an issue, it would put out solutions, and you can tell kind of the opinion of the author. And while I didn't agree with everything that was in there, it was still here's the problem, here's various solutions, and this has that mentality as well. The difference between the two is I just feel like this at the end goes off where they attempt to comment on things, where they've graded the Constitution and they then debate amongst themselves whether or not the solution to fixing things is a whole new constitutional convention. The answer is not. I have a very hard opinion on that one because there are some very nasty vested interests that would derail such thing, and I think there is a naive take on where we lie. The other issue, I think, is that while it goes through and talks about these issues, it never really dives into exactly the causes of some of these issues. It has a conclusion that the Constitution itself is the flaw and not how we elect our representatives and who they represent is the flaw. It's one of those of, it's saying the system and the Constitution is the corruption and the problem, where on Rig and where I lie is it's not the system, it's the representatives themselves and the fact that they are beholden to the people that fund their campaigns. The corporations, the special interests, that's the problem, is that they don't actually represent the people of their district, they represent the businesses of their district, which is totally different. And if you were to take out that influence, I think a lot of these issues that are laid out here would go away. It's not saying that it wouldn't be perfect, but the graphic novel doesn't seem to ever go through and really discuss what the causes of some of these underlying problems are. It just says, hey, this document is flawed. Yeah, every document you're ever going to put out is flawed. Like, every piece of legislation is flawed. Every law, it has flaws in it. Doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means it's not perfect, and that you have to then try to keep working harder to make things perfect. The perfect example of this is, there's a whole thing about gerrymandering, and it gives the solutions of, having nonpartisan gerrymandering. Like, this is the perfect example of this book, is that it gives these solutions of how to solve this. But if you read it, the Constitution is the flaw and not how we've interpreted and worked through the Constitution. Instead of sitting there saying, hey, we want a more equitable solution, than one that's fair and it's more about the process and representing the people, it has become a, no, our party has to keep power. And I think that's the flaw of the graphic novel, is that it doesn't talk about the corruption that has happened, that politics in itself has become a business and is no longer about representation of individuals. The heart and the want of individuals to actually go out and represent those who elected them isn't there as much as it's a multi-billion-dollar business, and I need to raise money, and I need to then make the people who give me money happy. And, I think that is the biggest flaw of the graphic novel. I think the setup is right. The pointing out the flaws are right. Giving solutions that, happen with how other countries deal with it, or even how states deal with it, is completely right. I think the conclusions at the end, where they're rating things and then get their opinions of that we need to have a new constitutional convention, is completely wrong. And it kind of took me out of the book itself. So it's really interesting. And it's, I'm not going to completely fault it, because I love it up to that conclusion. I think it does a great job of pointing out, best intentions that haven't quite worked perfectly. I think it's really interesting from there. Like, it's a great way to learn about these issues. I just feel it gets a little preachy at the end and injects opinion, as opposed to throwing out a whole bunch of different solutions and ways to resolve things. Part of it is because there's a whole chapter about how it's difficult to amend the Constitution. So, of course, if that's part of your chapter and focus, saying that, that is part of the solution is not part of it. It's not going to be your thing if you already think that system is broken and that you need a whole constitutional convention. Never mind that system itself would be freaking broken as all hell, and say bye-bye to all your freaking rights. All right, so the art I think is great. Like, as I said, this is a fantastic way of learning. The art is really, really solid and entertaining. Like, there's a great flow to it. It doesn't, give the narrative like you would in a normal graphic novel, but there is at times that it has that flow. It's really, really good. Like, it just does a solid job of presenting these really difficult concepts, and honestly some of these really boring concepts, and do it in an entertaining way. Like, if I was teaching college, this would be a line of graphic novels, or not even college, high school. This would be a line of graphic novels I would want as part of my curriculum. Like, I think they're a really great way of setting up these concepts and allowing people to understand them and digest really, really, really complicated stuff, and honestly fairly boring stuff. I would have loved to have this in college as a poli-sci major. really, really long video and review of this, but overall, I'm happy with it. I think it's really, really good. Unfortunately, I don't think it totally sticks the landing, just because I think some of the, instead of just presenting the issues and different solutions, there's opinion in there, which just doesn't quite feel right for this line of books. You know, maybe as an addition of a, hey, go the story debate on this site or something like that would be way better way to handle it. Just a couple pages of them going back and forth in text debating about a new constitutional convention and them grading the Constitution itself. Just, it doesn't sit right for me. It just doesn't feel like it belongs in the graphic novel. But as an educational tool, I think it's absolutely fantastic. If you're a parent and you've got a kid that wants to learn about these things, or you yourself want to learn about these things and get more educated about our political system, the Constitution, and how things were set up and how they are, like, this is a fantastic graphic novel to get you there. It's out now in comic shops. It's out now in bookstores. Go get it. We got a link beneath this video. You can put in your zip code. It'll tell you if a shop's near you. No shop, no problem. We do have affiliate links. There are affiliate links, so we get a small percentage of things. By doing that, you help support our site, so thanks for that. And speaking of thanks, I want to thank First Second for hooking us up with the review copy. I really, really appreciate it. This is stuff I love. As a political person, I absolutely love this. And thank you for watching. Now, if you're into graphic novels, if you're into First Second, comics in general, check us out every single day at graphicpolicy.com. We're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Tumblr, all at Graphic Policy, keeping it nice and consistent. Until next time, keep reading those comics and keep it geeky. Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.